Recently, it seems like Star Wars has been on an up and down kind of trend for a lot of people, actually. Whether it be, The Acolyte, which wasn't as strong of a series, or Ahsoka, in my case. I absolutely found it charming and endearing and like really close to the actual feeling of Star Wars. Or even in the case of Skeleton Crew, which honestly, like for a lot of people, it was a bit of a mixed bag. And then obviously we can even go as far as to talk about the animated projects that Star Wars has been creating lately, like, Maul Shadow Lord or Visions. I mean, Maul Shadow Lord is considered a huge hit. I have not watched it yet, but I will do an overview if I ever get around to watching it, but I have not watched it yet. But also in the case of Visions, Star Wars Visions was a big deal when it came out because it was the first sort of like fully Japanese-based, anthology series from Star Wars. And I mean, that thing already has 2 seasons. I think they made a third, and they also made a separate Vision series just to tell one story, and it's considered a huge hit right now. So I mean, it's been up and down. And I feel like there's no better like scenario to actually encompass what we're talking about today than obviously The Mandalorian and Grogu. So first off, I think this movie is a bit of a mixed bag. Not entirely bad and not entirely great, which is what I expect from Star Wars. So let's start off with the good, at least. I think in large part, the casting of this film is great. You have Jeremy Allen White, who came onto this movie to play Rada the Hutt, which I believe is a great character. As a matter of fact, I actually became a fan of Rada the Hutt. He's awesome. I wish I could see more of him in the future. And I think Jeremy Allen White does an incredible job playing him. Obviously, we can go into, the big sort of like cameo-esque experience that we have with Sigourney Weaver, who is absolutely great. Her being this sort of like rebellion fighter pilot. I mean, she's great. She's absolutely great in this movie. And, obviously she gets little scenes here and there. I mean, I'd expect her to show up more often than not, but she does show up in this movie and she does a great job. Obviously, Martin Scorsese pops up in this movie. He plays sort of this like vendor monkey looking character, which is great. He does a great job in this movie as well. Small sort of cameo-esque appearance as well. And I think that goes far and wide for every other sort of extra character that has, been placed here and there throughout the story. I think all the characters here are very strong. Now, obviously, when we talk about characters, we cannot leave out the main character of this movie, which is the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal. He's absolutely great in this movie. Obviously, keeping with the traditional style of the Mandalorian, being this, badass who just goes in and attacks every single angle that he can in order to, achieve his goal. Sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, but ultimately he gets what he needs to get in the end. But that's because he's a very skilled fighter and bounty hunter. But I really like his story in this movie. It's very streamlined. There's no real like huge deviation from the story. Yes, you have these little like almost ping pong-esque things like, oh, now you have to go there in order to get this, but then now you need this in order to get that. I mean, those are typical things, but I'm going to get a little bit more into detail later in this video about what I think happened with this movie, but nonetheless, I think that Pedro Pascal's performance in this movie is fantastic, and to see that he actually shows up in physical form in this movie is a great thing. And so I have nothing but absolutely great things to say about his performance as the Mandalorian, because he's been playing this character now for the better half of maybe 7 years now, 7, 8 years almost. So yeah, it's really great. So I got nothing else to say. Now I cannot help but point out the little cameo that Dave Filoni himself does in this movie. Him showing up, sitting at a bar with a classic hat. I'm like, dude, this is like, he's just sitting there and he just pops up in the movie. So I mean, it was a little nice. It was a nice little touch, kind of like to say like, hey, thank you for, you know, taking care of Star Wars now. I mean, like, I can't lie, that was a nice little cameo, but that's about as much as we see of Dave Filoni in a little cameo. Now, apart from the casting itself, I think the pacing of this movie is great. There's not a single moment where this movie like drags or stretches on for a really long time. You know, I feel like the only part of this movie which some people would say kind of slows down is when we start looking at Grogu, because this movie is called The Mandalorian and Grogu. Now, obviously, we get more Mandalorian in this movie than Grogu himself, but we do get Grogu, which is great because we get to see him sort of like figure things out, sort of like help out Din, sort of, you know, kind of put him in places and sort of like hide him while he's trying to take care of him. Like, it's a really interesting little dynamic seeing, you know, Grogu sort of like take care of Djarin in a way that is that's kind of like unique to him, because he's a very like he's a little baby. I mean, like him sort of like taking care of him. So that was interesting. I'm not gonna lie. Most people would probably complain about that part of the movie, but I think it was nice. It was nice to include that in there. But I think overall, speaking overall, like of the actual package that this movie delivers, it's well paced. The story is somewhat interesting. I'm not going to say it's like super interesting. I think it's somewhat interesting. And I think that it offers a fun time. Like, if the goal of this movie is just to be fun, it delivers. That is exactly what it's delivering. It's just giving you a fun time at the theaters. That's all it did. Like, that's all it is. And obviously, I didn't get to see it in theaters. I waited to see it on streaming. But I do have to say that it delivers. It delivers on the premise of doing something fun. And I feel like that's pretty much what this movie is all about. And something I also enjoyed was the actual soundtrack of this movie. The score that was playing in the background was really fun. It was fast-paced. It matches the vibe of the actual action that's going on. I feel like there's a lot of fun action sequences that happen throughout this movie, and I just love how well they were able to score those moments, because obviously we have seen the series well scored, but then have this movie happen, they actually scored it really well. So I think that's a really big plus on that end. And speaking of the visuals of this movie, the cinematography of this movie is absolutely great. Obviously keeping the same standard from the show, except just, you know, kind of transitioning it to something a little bit more larger format, which I think is really interesting as well. Obviously, as someone who definitely notices little details, I think my favorite scene of this movie, and probably the biggest like Easter egg, as we could possibly say it, is the actual sort of hollow chess board game kind of arena that we see, you know, Din Djarin kind of fighting in. When I saw that, I was like, okay, that was a really cool callback to the original, original hollow chess board that we see in Star Wars and you know, on the Millennium Falcon. So I mean, like, that was a really nice touch. And for me to actually see that was really cool. I was like, okay, this is a cool scene. So I think that's probably the biggest, most memorable scene for me of the movie that I actually really enjoyed seeing. The fight sequence itself is amazing. I mean, there's a lot of action in this movie. You know, there are chase sequences, there's fighting sequences, there's like big set pieces as well. So I mean, like, everything is very much action-packed in this movie. And I feel like it's done by design. And I think that I need to elaborate a little bit more on that. And by elaborating on something like that, I do have to say that, I mean, it's not entirely negative. And even though that now I'm going to talk about a little bit more of the things that didn't go well with this movie, I think that at the same time, you can kind of understand why they did the things they did. So I think the very first thing that we have to talk about is obviously the fact that this movie, as well-paced as it is, and as well-structured that it is, I cannot lie to you when I say that it is obvious that the approach that they did with this movie is the exact same approach that they did with Moana 2. I know what you're probably saying. What does one movie have to do with the other? I understand. But let me explain to you real quick. Moana 2 originally was supposed to be a Disney Plus series. Now, Disney did not call back, Lin-Manuel Miranda to write the new songs or anything. And they said, you know what? We're going to put this on Disney Plus. Then somebody internally said, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's take the series. Let's re-edit this series down to a movie. And then we'll put that in theaters. And I'm not going to lie to you. The success of Moana 2 is well known enough. As you can see here. It made a lot of money. And we're talking about like a mother load of money compared to the original. The original made a lot of money. This one made a lot more money. So it's not a secret that Disney thought, hey, wait a second. If we could do that with Moana 2, then why don't we do that with season 4 of The Mandalorian? And that's where I get to my point here. This movie is clearly structured as a show. I'll explain to you a little further. As someone who is a video editor, that's what I do. That's my profession. I know when an episode ends and when an episode begins. And I can clearly see that this movie roughly has around 6 to 7 episodes in it. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that this is not, was never supposed to be a movie, that this is a bad idea. I'm not saying it was a bad idea, because I'm pretty sure that they cut out a lot of fat from the show, a lot of fat from season 4, and they said, you know what? We have enough here, enough good material to make a movie. And that's what they did. And I feel like that was the best decision that they could have done for this movie. Is it a bad thing? It's a bad thing because, okay, people could have seen this on Disney Plus. And honestly, in my opinion, as much as it went to theaters and made some okay money, this is a Disney Plus property. And I would not be, crazy to say that this could have just gone directly to streaming. I feel like most people would agree with me. This could have been directly to streaming, and you could have seen this movie at home. Because honestly, what is there to add to The Mandalorian that we don't already know? We had 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. I feel like Disney saw that the 3rd season wasn't as strong, and they said, you know what? We already have everything for a 4th season. Why don't we just make a movie out of it? I feel like they never even mentioned this to anybody, but this was going to be a show. This was going to be a 4th season. And clearly, the moments that you see, for me, as an editor, whenever I see them expanding the aspect ratio, to me, this movie, first of all, as an editor, you only expand the aspect ratio once, maybe twice in a movie or in a show. Once or twice. The only time I've seen the expansion of an aspect ratio in a show, and I think was utilized beautifully well, was in WandaVision. Now, WandaVision actually used that really well. I think in 1 or 2 episodes. So I think in that sense, okay, you can use that. This movie has 5 or 6 moments where look, we're expanding the aspect ratio. Oh, look, we're expanding the aspect ratio. I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna crop in. You can see me, right? You can see me. But now that I'm approaching the camera, you see what I'm saying? It can get kind of repetitive, and utilize it to the best of your ability and use it as a tool for storytelling. If you use it 6 times in a movie, it kind of gets gimmicky. So don't overdo that. I honestly, like, overall, in that sense, story-wise, obviously the structure of it being a show, a season, you can clearly tell when it ends and it begins the next episode. I mean, you can be the best editor in the world and you can hide those moments, but the story beats are what actually count as each individual story. So I can't lie. That is where I think this movie kind of gets it wrong. Another thing that this movie gets wrong, and I feel like most people would probably chew me out for saying what I'm about to say, but this movie could have easily had the inclusion of something like Luke Skywalker, could have easily included Bo-Katan, could have easily included, bring Ahsoka into this movie. I know it's kind of a stretch, but dude, it would have just added more flavor to the story. You know, you could have easily included Boba Fett into the story. Boba Fett, it would have been awesome. You're already dealing with the Hutts. Include Boba Fett into this story. It would have been like enticing and fun and exciting, and add locales that people are familiar with. Like I want to see like Mandalorian, like instead of a desert or in a tundra, dude. I want to see him on Coruscant. Like I want to see him, fighting. Like I mean, sure, we get to see a little bit of Coruscant in this movie. I'm not gonna lie, like a city-esque feel. Like we get that. I'm not gonna say we don't get that, but we could have seen so much more creativity be put on screen here. Like that's the one thing that I wanted. I wanted to see maybe a few cameos here and there of characters that we've seen before, that we're familiar with, that would have been fun. So that's one thing that actually got me, kind of like, we could have used that, right? Like, man, I don't know. I mean, that's how I feel. Now, do I see them expanding the story by any means? Like, do I see them do an actual 4th season of The Mandalorian? Do I see them, expanding Din Djarin's story? Do I see anything come out of this movie to indicate that we might get another movie? No. Unfortunately, I feel like here is where it, like, the line ends, and that's it. Like, this is the end of Din Djarin's story here. Now, apart from the Mandalorian storyline, I want to see where Grogu goes next. Like, I know that we're gonna have to do a time jump here of at least 150 years before we get to see like fully grown Grogu. Like Grogu at, the size of Yoda, for us to understand and kind of like carry that knowledge with him. I would love to see that. I would love to see them push him 150 years into the future, and then we see where he is then. Like, where's the Jedi Order with Grogu in the future? Is he leading a new era of Jedi? Is he, continuing on as a Mandalorian? Like, what is the bridge there? Like, is he getting, knowledge from Master Yoda, and is Master Yoda the one kind of leading him into that area? Those are all facts that I feel like would be very interesting to like explore in a future movie, or hopefully a show about Grogu and where things are going. And hopefully it's like a limited series, like, like a 6-episode series where we see Grogu learning and growing and actually, expanding his world, sort of like seeing his time pass with Din Djarin, and then ultimately, him growing old and not being the Mandalorian anymore. So I mean, like, it would be very interesting to see that play out, and hopefully we get that at some point from Disney. But for now, I don't think that there is really anything or anywhere else to go from here. And I feel like in the Mandalorian's case, that's a good thing. So overall, I think even with the little caveats that I had with this movie, and clearly seeing that this was structured as a show that they just converted into a movie, I am almost certain of what I'm saying, that, this is definitely going to be a movie that people who watch are going to have fun watching. There's no doubt about that, and I feel like if the ultimate goal was to make a movie where people just can go watch and just have fun with, and not have to be super connected into the storylines that are surrounding Mandalorian. If your goal is just to go watch and have fun with a movie, it succeeded. That was a successful thing. Now, as a Star Wars story that could ultimately incorporate into future storylines, I don't see that happening with this movie. But overall, I had fun. I had fun with this movie, and I feel like most people would have fun as well watching this. Mostly at home, even though some went to the theater, but I think mostly at home, just putting it on, having a bucket of popcorn, and just having a blast watching it. I mean, not like it is made for that. It's just pure entertainment. And I want to know from you if you agree with me as well. Do you think that this is a movie that was designed for just pure entertainment? Or do you think that this is just a movie that Disney had to come up with something to put out in theaters? Do you think that Disney was a bit lazy in sort of like creating this movie out of like what I think they would have made a fourth season? Or do you think that they were actually creative and created something really fun and intuitive for the audiences? I don't know. I want to hear from you down in the comments below. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos go live on this channel. And thank you so much for watching this video. And I will see you in the next video.
Scrolling through YouTube, same old routine, then bam, movie savant, what a scene. Trivia bombshells dropping knowledge like rain. Forget the dishes, gotta watch it again. Movie buffs unite, savants to place. Subscribe and hit the bell, don't leave a trace. Next level knowledge keeps you in the loop. Savants got the scoop, ain't nothing to recoup.